All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the How to Grow Strategically panel discussion at the HealthTech RapidConf March event, hosted by the HealthTech Networking Club. I'm Lindsay Williams, founder of Corliss Consulting and co-founder of MyUTI, and I will be your moderator for this panel discussion. The monthly HealthTech RapidConf events are organized by the HealthTech Networking Club, an exclusive networking club that brings together influential members of the health tech community. Our RapidConf events videos boast 10,000 video views on both YouTube and Facebook. So if you'd like more information on the monthly HealthTech RapidConf event series or the HealthTech Networking Club, please head to the Bene Studio website. To all of our members, if you haven't already, we urge you to leave a comment in the general Slack space about our topic of the month for a chance to contribute to the Health Tech Guide. More details are available in Slack. And the link to the Slack channel can be found in the Zoom chat box. So please leave any feedback or comments on the panel discussion in the general chat on Slack. Before we begin our panel introductions, I'd like to remind our panelists to please mute all devices, including Slack notifications, for the duration of the session. So I'm going to start by asking our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, just giving a quick 2-minute background. And I will start with Balint, please.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Balint Bene. I'm the CEO of Bene Studio. And at Bene Studio, which is a digital product consultancy, I have seen more than 100 different projects and digital products. And I have seen growing strategically, and I have seen examples for failures as well. So I would like to share these best and worst practices today.
Thank you. And next we will go to Joshua.
Hi, everyone. Josh Goldberg here. As I mentioned, I'm a patent attorney, so I help my clients protect their new innovations, their new developments, whatever it is that makes them them and makes them unique, so that when they're ready to enter the market, they don't have competition, they can maximize their profits, their market, and they can help the most people. I also help a lot of startups secure funding. Either by helping find them partners or by maximizing what they can ask by making sure that any questions about, well, how do we know our investment is safe, showing the IP portfolio they've helped build so that, yes, the investor does have that confident feeling that this is a good bet and a good risk. I work with a lot of different health tech companies, from startups to medium-sized and large companies. I manage my firm's biopharma chemical practice, also work with medical device companies, and everyone I work with is either here in the US or around the world, of course. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to visit anyone where they are for about a year, so hopefully that will change sometime soon. Glad to see everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. Rebecca, will you please go next?
Yes, hello. Lovely to be here virtually. I am Beracah Gwilt. I'm the partner and co-founder of Nixon Gwilt Law. I told you sort of the high level before, but we work with early stage, growth stage, and established healthcare innovation companies exclusively. And for those companies, we provide certainly healthcare regulatory compliance work. We create transactional and commercial documents. We do M&A and financing document work. And we also provide insights into emerging policy, emerging law, connections with stakeholders in the system. Much like Joshua, because we work with these types of companies, we have relationships with accelerators, incubators, VC firms, angel groups, et cetera, that are investing in the health tech space and healthcare innovation space in particular. And I am here to just share what I have seen, what I have learned, and to answer any of your questions. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining. And last but certainly not least, Beracah, will you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Beracah Stortvedt. Yes, they're both really difficult names to pronounce. I apologize in advance for that. My middle name is Brandon. Completely normal. But I co-founded and lead the digital health and emerging medtech practice at Marsh Mclennan Agency. About 5 years ago, I sat at the intersection of healthcare, life sciences, and technology and saw how people were not being served well in terms of managing risk and having insurance programs that both were inexpensive to start, but also protected them effectively and were scalable over time for a company. And so it's been fun to grow that practice over the last 5 years, help a lot of companies and see some great ideas grow and thrive. And what gets me up every day is helping bring the future of healthcare and make it a reality with all of you, with your incredible ideas.
Thank you so much. So really today is, I think, a really amazing conversation. And I've spoken with each of the panelists before today, and we've had some really interesting and intriguing conversations around so much of growing strategically is decisions that you make in the beginning as a founder, right? And a lot of these things often are invisible, as Balint so eloquently put it to me the other day, right? They're invisible because we're so focused as founders on our bigger vision, on our features, on our, patient experience or user experience. And a lot of times we forget to think about, how the decisions that we make now play into the future. And so Balint, I want to start with you on the strategy front. What is probably one of the most important things that a founder or a founding team can do to set themselves up for success?
Thanks for the question. It's a really exciting question, and we can bring practices because we don't know the exact solution, but I have seen growing products and growing companies and their practices, and I have seen failures as well. So let me share a few examples. Usually, when there is a solid product roadmap, which is on one hand the vision of the future, the near future, mid-term, and long-term future, but on the other hand is a flexible framework of thinking. So being in the middle is really useful if we talk about the product roadmap, being flexible with the elements, but having some structure. So it should be the base, at least what I saw with successful products and companies. And under this roadmap, which is a high-level frame, we should see the different stages, different phases. So the big question is always how to deliver as much value as possible to the users, to the customers, and how to build on that result later. So this is where strategy come into the picture, when we have to build new steps, new layers on top of an early success, and to have the next steps, we need the first successful step. We can't jump it. So having a successful minimum viable product is definitely the first step, either for a startup or even for an enterprise new product. And for that, we have to think completely differently, because it should be as small as possible and just represent the core value. After this stage, we should see when it's time to change to a more scalable, more robust system, and how to build that. And for that, what I saw as a good practice is also going step by step, and bringing the most crucial client value into the front, and trying to leave out all the visions, all the nice to have or really imaginary solutions, leaving them for a later stage.
And this is a really great point, because I think the most difficult part of being on the entrepreneurship journey is it's a little bit like that game. I think it's called Twister, maybe, where you have to have like your hand on a red spot and your foot on a yellow spot. So it's like, think big, but think strategically by also thinking small, and have a big plan and a roadmap, but also be flexible and maintain flexibility. So how do you recommend that entrepreneurs balance that in terms of setting out a roadmap, but not being so married to it that they lose their ability to flex?
Yeah, it's a key question, and what I can see is it's hard to reach this midpoint. Let me bring an example from an early startupper, from a classical philosopher, Walter. He said that perfect is the enemy of good. So we definitely should listen to this early startupper, this early digital product manager, because we have to do exactly the same. We have to have this mindset, not to try planning or building the perfect end solution at the beginning, but let's try to go step by step, because what can be a worst practice is having a great idea, keeping it as a secret, and working on that for years, and having several hundred pages documentation. Every detail is worked out, but haven't met with potential users, haven't met with technical experts who can reflect on that plan early on, and in these cases it's really risky either to build that solution because it costs a lot of time and money, and it's risky on the business side as well, because breaking down an already built up massive, really complex concept to its core is sometimes more difficult than just to start from scratch. So this is what I saw as a worst practice in terms of the results, because in most cases this strategy just didn't work. So and we should take care of this side of the scale, and I have to say that we should be careful with the other side of the scale as well. So being too agile, too flexible, changing all the details every day in every hour, losing all the structures, and saying we are really flexible, really agile, and this is the way how we can disrupt the old world. If it's too flexible too often, then it also can cause problems. But on the other way, problems because there is no time frame, no strict framework to actually do something, to reach any milestones, reach any results. So it's also a practice which doesn't lead to success too often. So what I saw as a good balance is having a strict plan for the next short phase, as short as possible. Even it can be like 1 month ahead, having a really strict plan for that, and for the next phase having a quite detailed vision, and for the phases after that having less and less detailed, more high level, more flexible visions. Because this way, when we are going on our roadmap towards our goals, we always can refine the upcoming 1, 2, 3 milestones, but we also can keep the flexibility for the next phases. And the flexibility, not just in terms of budget and the project details, but in terms of mindset. So if we have a really detailed plan for 6 years, it's hard to think flexibly. It's hard to think outside of the box. But if we strategically keep our midterm, long-term plans high level, then we can connect the execution of today with the vision of the future, and we can be flexible at every steps.
And that actually reminds me something that that Rebecca, you spoke to the other day when we spoke, which is, you have to be really clear on kind of your core business and who you are. So being clear on that core vision, to Balint's point. But the reason that you actually told me that is because it helps inform from a legal perspective how to protect and guide an early stage company. And that really wasn't something that I had thought about, bringing in legal as an early advisor versus just, hey, I need these documents, these contracts, these forms. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yes. So I think what I said to you yesterday was legal follows business. We end up getting calls from folks for whom it's clear we are on their checklist of things to check off before they move forward. And they say, we know we need a privacy policy. We need a licensing agreement. Please draft those up for us so we can get to launch, next month. And you should be very, very careful of accepting any legal document from any lawyer who hasn't sat down with you and really understood the nature of your business, what your goals are, what your timeline is, the products you're selling or the services you're selling, and who really understands the regulatory structure within which you are operating. So, most of you on the call know that healthcare is more regulated than anything else, almost, beside maybe nuclear power, maybe banking. But it is quite important for the person advising you to understand your product, your services, and the framework within which it's operating. And so, before you ask for particular documents, keep in mind you may think but you may not know exactly what you need. So allow the folks in your sort of circle of influence, which includes your tax advisors, certainly your IP advisors, Josh, your legal, make sure that they all really understand your business and your goals, because many of us, especially if we work particularly, focused on the health tech sector, have seen a number of different business models, lots of different ways to do things. And we may actually have some advice for you on how to tackle a problem that you're trying to tackle, not just from a legal perspective, but from a business strategy perspective, that can save you lots and lots of time undoing things later.
I think that's so smart. And actually, Josh, I want to hear your perspective on this too, because one of the things that Balint also brought up is, so many people often feel like they have to be in stealth mode to protect themselves, right, for so long and to perfect something before they come out. From an IP perspective, what are some of your kind of key takeaways or advice around how to look at IP from an early stage, especially if you're wanting to protect yourself, but also if you're not sure if you have IP or what could actually be IP you may not be considering?
Sure, Lindsay, happy to weigh in on this. And first, I'd really like to echo a lot of the things that Rebecca and Balint said. So, with Rebecca, there is nothing more important than working with someone you're comfortable with. And I know from our perspective, we want to be considered a close, trusted advisor of our clients and part of their business. We want to know what their business is, how they do things, what their plan is, how they expect to make money, bring products to market, all of that. Because if we don't know that, just like Rebecca said, there's no way we're going to be able to provide the proper advice and actually give you the most value that we possibly can. I have people who say, here, come and draft this patent application for me and go away. And sometimes we do it. but it's really not doing our clients a service. And to Rebecca's point about really having to understand why are we being asked to do this? I remember, 10, 15 years ago, I had a client working on a license and they said, okay, we want you to review this licensing agreement for us. Just look at these 2 sections. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, how can I possibly give you good advice on a licensing agreement if all I'm doing is looking at these 2 sections? That makes no sense, because I then look at the first section and it says, well, for this, it refers to certain definitions. So then I have to go look at other sections to find what those definitions mean. And then it refers to other parts of the document. So I wound up giving advice on things that weren't even IP related. And they're looking at me, oh, how did you know how to do that? Well, it's because I read the document and I took at it from a holistic view, right? So you really have to work with people who take that viewpoint. Otherwise, you're doing yourself and them a disservice. And that gets into what Balint said, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And that comes into a lot of what I do, right? I use that phrase all the time. People talk about IP and they think, well, I have a new technology, a new innovation, I'm doing something. It's not patentable, right? To be patentable, I need to have something earth-shattering or groundbreaking, like the first iPhone, or the first personal computer, or some new cancer drug. And that's absolutely 100% not true. The example I use all the time is, a simple pen, right? Here's a simple rollerball pen as compared to a ballpoint pen. Each of these probably have 100 different inventions involved if you really get down to the micro level, from the overall appearance and design of the pen, how the cap fits on it. You have the ink involved, the viscosity of the ink, how the ink escapes from that little structure up front, which is going to be different for this pen than that pen. So really anything you're doing that's never been done before, even if it's an incremental improvement, might be really the huge benefit that everybody looks and says, wow, that's where the value comes from. Here in the US, most people know of Thomas Edison as one of the most prolific inventors ever and one of the most valuable inventors ever. And everybody thinks, for example, the light bulb as Thomas Edison's greatest invention. Thomas Edison didn't actually invent the light bulb. Somebody else did. What Thomas Edison did, is he went through all the different patent offices around the world, which was a big deal back then, to find out all the different materials that could be used as a filament to light up. And then he went through testing, and he tested hundreds of different materials before he selected the right one that had the longest life, the brightest burn, all of those things to make the best light bulb. And that was really his innovation. And that's why everybody thinks Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. What you all are doing is no different, right? Maybe you have something groundbreaking, maybe you don't. But if you're doing something new and different, that's what you have to protect. And the sooner you get me involved, someone like Rebecca involved, the better you're going to be able to protect yourself. This is where being the enemy of good comes in. Number one, you can wait and wait and wait until you fully refine your product, your project, your strategy. The longer you wait, the more risk you take of somebody else coming ahead of you. On the other side, if you say, you know what, I don't want to wait to be perfect, I just want to get out on the market. Well, now you're starting your clock, because you have a limited period of time from when you get out there and when you make your innovation publicly available before you can actually get a patent application filed to protect it. When I say limited clock, from your first sale, your first offer to sale, your first publication, you have 1 year. Otherwise, your patent rights are gone. Think about that. You might be donating your company's foundation to the public. The earlier you talk with somebody to know what those issues are, because most founders don't know what they don't know, the better off you're going to be.
I think that's so important. And so often, so many of these things are invisible to founders, right? And I think that's a really important area. And, we talk about strategy, and strategy is, yes, so much growth and product design and a lot of those things, but it is also protection, right, in these areas. And actually, Beracah, I wanted to have you talk on one other area of protection that honestly, I don't hear referenced very often in early stage companies, and that is insurance.
Yes, it's really a dirty word when it comes to early stage companies a lot of the time, because it's something that can, I think the elephant in the room is money, right? When you're an early stage company, you have limited resources. You're thinking about, how do I effectively use those resources to develop a product and get it to market and build my business? And the last thing you want to think about is the things that could go wrong, right? But I think in terms of scalability and setting up your company in a way that is not going to have things that go wrong that destroy your foundation, it's important to at least think about. And it's not as expensive as you might think. And we kind of help, just like you build the product roadmap, we help our clients think through a risk roadmap. What are the risks that you have at different stages, and what maybe do you need from an insurance perspective? And maybe what you need when you first start is a $500 a year insurance policy. That's not a big deal, right? Or maybe it's $3,500 or $5,000. These are not big numbers, right? But they can protect you from the things that go wrong, especially in healthcare. Anytime you're in health tech, there's potential of harm to someone at the end of what you're doing. The tech motto of work fast and break things does not work very well in healthcare, right? Because the breaking things at the end, it's not just somebody not getting the value out of some technology that you're doing, it's a person's life at the other end. And so thinking about not only insurance and taking a few minutes, it really doesn't take long to think about it. And we have a roadmap we've created for people. But then thinking about legal too, because a lot of the things that go wrong are regulatory and otherwise, right? So I've seen things like Department of Justice investigations into telemedicine companies because they didn't set up their structure correctly to be able to see patients in person when they needed to, then see them online, or to have providers appropriately licensed. Or there's a lot of regulatory things that go into providing health tech in today's world that are important considerations. You need someone like Rebecca and her team, or Josh, in terms of protecting things you're doing. And it's not as expensive as you think from my perspective. And then Rebecca, just to plug her firm too, their rates tend to be like half of a normal big firm's rates from an hourly perspective. And so you get a lot more value. And then you have someone who really understands your business. And I think those things together are important.
I was just gonna rep Beracah, because what you don't realize, he used to be an underwriter, which I think is a really important piece here. What you don't realize in the health sector is that there are companies that will sell you a bunch of insurance, not understanding your business and the risks of for instance, a telemedicine business where you're actually providing patient care versus a device or software business where you're sort of supporting those folks, but you don't take on the liability yourself. Those should be underwritten differently. And I don't always see that with my clients. And someone like Beracah that understands the nature of your business is able to guide his underwriters to get you a rate that's not outrageous. So I've had a ton of clients that have gotten quotes and I've sent to Beracah, and they've been very happy.
And again, just to underscore the importance of like working with people you know and trust, and also having that relationship with that kind of early advisor team that should include not just your technical advisors, not just your kind of early adopter advisors or physician advisors, clinical advisors, but also legal from the perspectives, right, of risk mitigation, IP, and insurance, right? I mean, that's a big play. And actually, kind of moving into this more technical aspect of strategy. Beracah, I don't know if you'll just chime in really quickly since we're on the topic, but I was shocked to learn what the #1 claim for small businesses is right now. Will you share with us?
Yeah, we're seeing tons of cyber claims right now. And people tend to think that hey, cyber criminals are only going to go after big companies. They're only going to go after people that have 100 million patient records that they can steal. But what they do is they tend to go after businesses that don't have as much IT infrastructure and don't have the protections in place. And guess what? Health tech is a great place to do that, because there is a
Oh no.
I think he just, yeah.
Okay, it wasn't just me.
So I think one thing that he was going to talk about that we spoke about the other day was the fact that they actually target these smaller companies and are able to basically get access to your information and how devastating that can be. Oh, are you back, Beracah? Okay, you finished.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. But as a health tech company, can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. As a health tech company, I think the thing that they'll go after is you have the patient data, right? They know you have patient data, and that's very valuable on the black market, and you don't have the infrastructure that a lot of larger companies have to protect it. And that's what makes you a bigger target. We've seen tons of ransomware as well as other attacks on these smaller businesses as well.
Yeah, and that kind of plays into this whole concept of, building with scale in mind, but also from a very early stage, how important some of these technical build decisions can be, right? And obviously everybody knows if you're dealing with patient data, you got to be HIPAA compliant. But there's a lot of other aspects from a technical perspective in setting your company and your data structure up that can play into that. And then, of course, the importance of having the insurance coverage, right? So that if something does go wrong, it does not devastate your company.
Yeah, and the average ransom today is $300,000.
Which is a lot of money for a startup, right? And your investors don't want to see that money go to ransom versus investment in their company, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know,
and a policy can be as little as $100 a month to protect you. So
right, which is so worth it in the grand scheme of things. Absolutely.
If you're getting a bunch of those claims, it's not going to stay $100 a month. That's for sure.
True.
So
buy now.
Build it better too. Absolutely. So, I mean, I think that's also brings us back to Balint in terms of, how do you build with growth in mind, right? So often I think we're trying to get an MVP out the door and we just want to do it with, as little investment as possible so we can show traction, get better valuations to go raise better rounds, but at the same time, I think, there can be some things that are worth spending money on, right? The $100 a month for the insurance. Yes, check that box. But then also from a tech perspective, Balint, what would you recommend, for these early stage founders and companies to consider in building out their kind of MVP tech platform?
Yeah, it's a really exciting question, and we have to summarize all that risk aspects which Rebecca Joshua Beracah mentioned today. Because if you talk about the technology of a new product or a startup, then it's all about risk mitigation and risk evaluation and the priority of different approaches. Why is this so important? Because most of the founders or product owners focus on the business, which is obviously a really good thing. But on the surface, from a business or a user perspective, we can see features, we can see functions, what I can do with that particular application, and it's really easy just to think about the features and the new features on the wish list, and to forget the system under the hood. If we go with this high speed, we can break things, as Beracah quoted, but not just on the legal side, but on the technical side as well. So for a first step to having a prototype, it's really good to do as simple as possible. But after that, when the idea is proved by some key users, some key stakeholder feedbacks, then we have to plan with the technology aspects as well more. for this really first prototype, even we don't have software, we can do user experience focused wireframe prototype for that. So there are really simple tools just to validate the business concept. But after that, when we are having a service, having users, we definitely need the first working application, and it's called usually MVP, minimum viable product, because the goal is having something which is already working, but nothing else, nothing more. And in this case, having less can be more in terms of the features, because if we're not just 100% focusing on the features, on the surface, we will have focus and budget and time for the serving technology as well, to have that application stable, to make that application compatible with different browsers, different platforms, which is also crucial, and of course the security and the operations aspects, which is the difference between a useful application and between an unuseful application, if we talk about this same feature set. So just having the core solution as a feature and providing it as simple as possible, it's not just good for the technology and for the reliability of that first system, but also good from a user perspective, from a user experience perspective, because for the new user, it's a hard challenge just to get to know our new application, and we shouldn't make it even harder with a lot of complex features and structures and everything on the first step. But just providing the key value, the key function could help the business as well, even more than overwhelming the user.
I think one of the things that entrepreneurs struggle with is this idea of how to balance where the spend goes, right? And specifically, it can be a challenge to not want to spend it all, right, on kind of the design aspects, the experience, the product piece of it. But you know, Rebecca, you made a comment to me yesterday about like, don't let money get in the way of good advice and better decisions. And I think, you know, speaking to what Balint said of, you know, hey, get your minimum viable product out the door, get it tested, get the feedback that you need to have those kind of inflection points, right? You have your kind of key milestones or flex points along the way that you allow yourself the flexibility to make changes if needed. But, you know, from a legal perspective, it can be really hard to spend money on picking up the phone and calling a lawyer and saying, let me spend an hour walking you through my product because I know I'm going to get charged for that, right? Can you speak a little bit about how your group has maybe shifted to meet the needs of health tech in particular?
Sure. So I think that in general, you get the most value from someone who understands not only the substance of the industry you're operating within, but also can think the way that you think as an entrepreneur, right? And Josh talked about this trust principle, and it really is quite important. And some of that comes from trusting that they know what they're talking about. And the second comes from trusting that they know where you're coming from, right? They understand the constraints of the entrepreneur. They understand that every dollar you spend on legal and not on your sales team is going to impact you, right? So really important to have somebody who understands in that way. And if you do, what you then have is a very different kind of conversation. You have a conversation where first, of course, you make sure that they understand your business. But the second is about your risk tolerance and about what your budget is. And once you have that discussion, then your partner, right, your strategic partner, who happens to be a lawyer, can say to you, okay, look, here's what's really important. We've got to get your commercial contracts done so that we can start, so that you can start generating revenue, right? You're going to have to agree to X, Y, and Z in this contract, and you may not have that in place. It's going to cost this to have this in place, or you could just sort of keep going, make the money, and make sure this is on your roadmap to get done. A good example is very early stage companies that are dealing with protected health information, right? It is usually the case that they don't always have their first contract at a point at which they are fully compliant, right? They've built, hopefully built their product to be very secure, but maybe they haven't done their security risk assessment. Maybe they don't have everything in place. Maybe the hospital wants you to have a SOC 2 audit and you don't have it in place yet, right? So you've got to figure out, what is most important to you and work with your partner to make sure that they understand that and they are tackling it accordingly, right? That's about sort of scoping. The second piece there is about pricing. So most startups are working on, growth stage startups, which is sort of who I work with, are on an 12 to 18 month runway, and they know how much money they have to spend over that amount of time. And they've raised money expecting to be able to have that amount of time. One thing is make sure that you are budgeting in legal. If you're in the healthcare sector, it's going to hurt. You have to do it. You're not selling widgets. And so, factor in that budget. The second thing is, how can you avoid getting this is not a joke. We had a client that ended up, through a relationship with the founder, decided he wanted his buddy at another law firm to be their lawyer. We said, great, fine, good luck. We heard later that they had gotten a $300,000 legal bill in 1 month for work that we could have priced flat fee for a fraction of that, right? And we're not a discount firm, right? So you need to have some assurance that your budget is going to last, given that you're going to need need this advisory. And so one thing that we do, and other firms are starting to do now, is once we learn what you need and we're able to scope it out, we can give you a monthly budget. We can give you a flat fee for that project. And that's going to allow you to, one, know what it costs, right? Because some people say, oh my God, that's what it costs. We got to go and do some work for a couple months and we'll come back to you, right? One, it gives you a realistic picture of what's going to cost over the long term. And two, it gives you ability to budget it out. So when you're talking to your angels, when you're talking to your VCs about what it is you need and what it is you're spending, and you will know how to justify it so that you don't freak anyone out and you're able to, allocate expenses in a planned way.
And I think it's important what you just mentioned there about, VCs in particular, because I hear from a lot of startup companies that feel like they have to have the big name law firms, right? And we won't name anyone in particular here today, on their pitch decks to give them validity and because they have that connection. But, you and I had a really great conversation around specifically the role of generalists versus specialists in this particular space. And for anybody who doesn't know, would you give us just a quick, 1 minute explanation on kind of how the big firms work?
Yeah, and I'm interested in what Josh has to say on this as well. But my vision of the big firm is that they are basically a conglomeration of smaller practices, right? So you could fit my firm into a big firm and we would function similarly. What you pay for with big firms is certainly the amount of money they have to make to satisfy the partners who live up top, who you will, as a startup or a growth stage company, actually work with are not those people. You will work with lower level folks who have less experience and may cost a little bit less than talking to a partner, but still cost a whole hell of a lot. And so that's the thing on big firms, right? In terms of and I know I've taken a lot of time, so I'll try to make this short. The thing with the generalists versus specialists is if you can get somebody who understands, again, your business and where you're functioning in the marketplace and, actually work with those people, you are going to spend less of their time, right? Because they don't have to get smart on what you're doing. And with a smaller firm, firms like mine don't have to carry the overhead of having a whole IP department. We'll just send you to Josh, right? And we don't have to keep the overhead of a labor and employment practice. We'll just send you to an affiliate practice who we trust. And so there's a bit of efficiency that you can get from operating in that way.
And I think it's important to touch on this because I was actually in a Clubhouse chat the other day, and there was a major VC talking, and someone had come to the stage and asked a question about some early legal fees and trying to kind of to what you mentioned, right? Oh, my buddy is a lawyer. It's not his specialty, but lawyers are lawyers, right? And the VC said, do not legal. Like, I just can't even tell you. Every single time I see a deal downstream fall apart, it's because they didn't get good legal advice up front. Josh, I would love for you to just chime in on this, because you are a very much so a specialist in this area.
Absolutely. I agree again. So with everything Rebecca said, I promise we did not discuss this ahead of time, but we seem to share very common, similar ways of looking at things. With the big law firms, of course, you can get good work done there, and I'm never going to say otherwise. A lot of the big law firms are really good at what they do, and they have great reputations, and they're well-deserved. You're also going to pay for it. And more often than not, when you go to a big law firm, you're going to pay some multiple of what someone like Rebecca or I might charge you. Not to say that we're cheap. I don't think we're cheap, but we're reasonable. We like to work with our clients and understand their limitations, budgetary or whatever, where they are in the process, and really work with them. The best piece of advice I could give you, whether you're working with me or anybody else in the legal industry, be really clear up front about what it is that you want to have done and what it is you expect to be charged for it. And it's okay if the work that gets done is different than what you think it needs to be going in, right? Because that happens all the time. You don't have all the knowledge of the legal world. You're coming to the expert and asking them, what do you think I need? And they'll tell you, really, for where you are, you came to me saying you wanted A, but I think you need B. That's fine. That's great. Just make sure by the end of the conversation, it's clear. We're going to do B. This is the timeline, and this is what it's going to cost. Now, sometimes you can work with lawyers on an hourly basis, which is fine. Sometimes you could work with them on a flat fee basis, which is fine also. It's really just a matter of setting those expectations. And usually at a big firm, because that's what we're talking about, you might be attracted to the partner or the name and think that they're really going to be paying attention to you and what it is you're doing. And more likely than not, they're going to bring you in, they're going to hand you off to somebody who is more junior, doesn't have as much experience, and they're done, right? They have other things that they're working on. Now, that's not to say that if you worked with me or probably Rebecca, that we're going to do all your work for you yourselves, because there are always efficiencies to be gained by having people at different billing rates, different experience levels, do different tasks. But I know for myself, I'm always going to be involved and keep an eye on what's going on, making sure you're taken care of and that what we're doing, the service we're providing, actually matches up with what you need and expect. So I think really when you get down to it, that's the biggest difference, is cost and personal attention.
Yeah, and I would just mention too, in defense of the big firm, I do think that it makes sense once you get to your Series B probably stage to have your corporate work done, if you can, if you can afford it, have your corporate work done by a very large firm with good relationships with investment banks. Because at that stage, your lawyers can actually help you raise significant amounts of money from people that they work with all the time. So we often my firm start off as general outside counsel. We do sort of everything for the companies. At some stage, it is the case that they say, all right, we're going to go to Wilson Sonsini because they've got a relationship with X, Y, and Z investment bank, and they're going to help us put this deal together. And we say, great, go raise that money. And, we play nice in the sandbox. But I will say that there are strategic reasons after the very early stages to develop relationships with at least the corporate VC offices of the large firms.
Really great.
I want to add to that and then address the question Lauren asked here in the panel, the chat, if you don't mind. So I think, again, Rebecca's right. But just because you're working with a big firm for one of those things where they have that expertise that cannot be replicated does not mean they're your go-to for everything. You use a different tool in the toolbox for different activities. You don't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, right? You don't use a smaller firm to go after some of these funding opportunities, just like you don't use the big firm to do something where they're not well designed to do. And that gets to the question that Lauren here asked in the chat about being charged 7 hours for putting together an estimate. That honestly is outlandish. And if it were me, there is absolutely no way I would pay that. I would push back as hard as I possibly could on that. I mean, if you have a good relationship with that global law firm, you want to keep working with them, hopefully they're going to find some way to make it right to you. I'm assuming it's not actually doing the work, but I would find somebody else to work with on your IP search, whether it's me or somebody else. Honestly, it doesn't matter.
I've never seen anything like that.
No, I would be embarrassed
I've seen similar
to send you a bill
things
for that. Yeah, I've seen similar things too, but personally, I would be embarrassed to send that kind of bill. And the other thing is, if it's not someone you have a formal relationship with yet, whether it's the global law firm or their partner, if there's no formal relationship, you don't have an engagement agreement with them, anything like that, there's no obligation to pay on an estimate. That's absolutely insane.
They should be, yeah, if that's the case, they should be saying, I'm going to earn their business by putting together an estimate. That's like, it's like charging you for their advertising.
Yeah.
It takes all kinds, I guess. Well, thank you guys for this. I'm going to ask each of the panelists just in 1 minute or less to very quickly kind of summarize your final thought or key takeaway for all of our early entrepreneurs and innovators that are on the call with us today. From a strategy perspective, what is your number one piece of advice? Balint, let's start with you.
Yeah, from a strategy perspective, if we would like to grow strategically with the digital product, then we should keep an eye on the budget dedicated for the technical depths or the technical aspects, and we can balance between the continuous improvement or having different phases and different new systems from scratch for that phase, because it's also fine. It can be reasonable having a minimum viable product and then building a scalable, reliable system after that from scratch. And after a few years, building a new system with a modern technology also from scratch. So it can be a scenario. Or we can improve the system as a live organization with technologies like microservice architecture continuously. But what's the most important is either way, we should take care of these technical aspects and technical depths, and we should solve them to prevent big problems later, which could harm the business.
Okay, Beracah, if you can give us one line, what is your key takeaway?
Yep. Working with a specialist is always better and less expensive than working with a generalist.
Perfect. All right, Rebecca, what's your takeaway?
Build a circle of influence that you trust, that know your business, and share your goals.
Perfect. Josh, we'll wrap it up with you, and then I will transition us into our next Slack networking session.
So I would say find people like, and trust to surround yourself with, who have the knowledge to fill in the gaps that you don't know about or don't know exist, and listen to their advice as you go forward.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was an awesome panel. To everyone on the call, please join us next month on April 29th for our next Rapid Conference event with a focus on telemedicine. So until we meet again, if you'd like more information on the monthly HealthTech Rapid Conference event series or the HealthTech Networking Club, please head to the Bene Studio website and follow Bene Studio on social media. So we are now going to transition into a 3-minute networking break to talk to each other on the Slack channel. And once we return, Sandra Miller will be your moderator for the HealthTech Startup Awards session. And Networking Club members, please join me on Slack for more networking and a chance to comment on the topic of the month. The link is in the Zoom chat. And to everyone watching the live stream, stay online and we'll be back shortly.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks for the great discussion.
Yes, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was great.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the HealthTech Startup Award at the HealthTech Rapid Conference. This is our March event hosted by the HealthTech Networking Club. I'm Sandra Miller, CEO of Runway Innovation Hub, and I'll be your moderator for the HealthTech Startup Award session. Our rapid conference videos have actually now, after several months of doing this, have now grown to have 10,000 video views on YouTube and Facebook. So that's quite an accomplishment. Today, our esteemed panel of startup judges consists of Gary Goldman, CEO of Global Health Impact Network, Orrin Ailloni-Charas, CEO and Managing Partner of Global Health Impact Fund, Michael Koutsoudakis, Vice President at Paulson Investment Company, and Balint Bene, Founder and CEO of Bene Studio. I'm going to ask each of our judges to briefly introduce themselves. Let's kick that off with you, Orrin.
Well, good morning from San Francisco. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Orrin Ailloni-Charas. I am a doctor by profession, an anesthesiologist, and also involved in venture capital as the managing partner at the Global Health Impact Fund. It's great to be here. We invest in early stage digital health companies and are looking towards devices and other early stage healthcare companies in the future with our next fund.
Terrific. Thank you. Our next judge is Michael. Michael, can you say a little bit about yourself?
Morning all. I'm Mike Koutsoudakis. I'm Vice President over at Paulson Investment Company. It's a small investment bank. We specialize in healthcare and med tech, and the range is generally between $3 and $20 million. So hopefully at some point, if folks get past the seed stage, we'll be able to assist in some capacity. And grand scheme of things, happy to answer any questions and interject where I can to add value.
Great, thank you. And our next judge, Gary Goldman.
Thank you, Sandra. Good morning. Another Bay Area person, another anesthesiologist. Orrin and I are partners. So I'm the founding partner of Global Health Impact Fund, and I am the founder and CEO of Global Health Impact Network, and we are a clinician-driven, founded, funded, and managed clinical innovation network. Sorry about that. Clinical innovation network focused on promoting active participation by clinicians in the digital health revolution. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Gary. And our final judge is Balint.
Hello, everybody. My name is Balint Bene. I'm the CEO of Bene Studio, and I've seen 100+ digital projects, mainly startups and enterprise new innovations. And I would like to help with that experiences today, and to highlight the startups here because it's really important to see the innovations and to spread the word with them and to support each other.
Terrific, thank you. We have 4 startups who will be pitching in today's session. Michael Mclennan, who's founder of Stasis Labs, based in Los Angeles. Graham Douglas, founder of Arete Medical Technologies, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, from Cambridge in the UK. Daniel Zakowski, founder of Ready Set Food, also based in Los Angeles. And Stephen Moyo, founder of Wellfy, also from Southern California and San Diego. So we're really looking forward to hearing from each of these startups. Here's how today's session will run. If this is the first time you're joining one of our events, each startup will have 4 minutes to pitch. And after this pitch, I will ask the judges to briefly ask any questions that they might have to clarify anything that they didn't hear in the pitch, and also to give constructive feedback. The feedback, by the way, entrepreneurs, is not rebuttal feedback. It's just take the gift of getting some feedback for how you might improve your presentation. Any presentation we give, we're always learning. And so this is an ongoing process, but we unfortunately don't have time to engage in a lot of back and forth on the feedback. So take it for the gift that it is. And after the discussion, the judges will score the startup pitch on a scale of 1 to 5, pretty simple, with 5 being the highest. And we use a very analog way to do this. Namely, we ask the judges to hold up their fingers with their score of 1 to 5. At the end of today's session, the startup with the highest score will be announced as the HealthTech Startup of March. They'll get a product acceleration session with Bene Studio to enhance the development of their product. And they can also have a one-on-one coaching session with me on a wide array of topics. All startups today are also eligible for a free product boost from Bene Studio. And importantly, to all of you from the HealthTech Networking Club who are participating with us, please do share your feedback and praise with our startups. Any questions, additional questions that you might have during the session on Slack. Maybe folks in our audience today can help the startups with something. Your feedback and suggestions may also be highlighted in this event's summary that will be provided on the website later. So we're going to kick things off with our first pitch with Stasis Labs and Michael Malon. Startups, as you come online, Michael, I'll want to hear you and see your slides. And when you're ready, I'll be timing you just on my phone, and so I'll call you at 4 minutes. And we don't see your slides yet, Michael. Can we hear you?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. I can hear you. I see your slides now.
And if I go like this, you can see it okay?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right. Are you ready to go?
I am, yeah.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
Cool. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Michael Malon. I'm the founder and CEO of Stasis. My background is I'm a biomedical engineer. I grew up really my entire life around healthcare, with my mom working in hospice care as an RN, and my dad as an epidemiologist in chronic care. Really growing up, I was just always so baffled that the access to quality care was so defined by socioeconomic class and geography. And so I've really kind of set out to try to figure out how to democratize access a little bit more. The initial idea for Stasis came back in 2012 when my co-founder's grandfather was in the hospital, and the nurses and doctors were caring for him, thought he was doing fine, but deteriorated while on their watch. And so this kind of information gap that he observed firsthand really became the initial idea that we wanted to build a company around. So we built out a next generation monitoring solution. The whole idea behind the company is to better connect patients with their clinicians to safely move care into lower acuity environments. This can be anything from the hospital to the home. And we deliver the patient information to wherever is most convenient for the nurses and doctors. Essentially how it works is we implement our monitor. Currently, we do it in different facilities, from hospitals to outpatient facilities. So the monitor is connected to the bed at the bedside of the patient. Our tablet, the nurses use as kind of a flexible interface to control our system. And we put all this information up to the cloud, which makes it very easily accessible for nurses and doctors in a range of settings. For example, in an outpatient surgery center, we'll put this at the nursing station. We'll put it in the operating room for anesthesiologists to have a full snapshot of how their patients are recovering, in the doctor's break room, as well as on their mobile device in their pocket. And we do different integrations with other data streams and are starting to incorporate some other wearables into our solution as well. We have started off by really focusing on moving care from the hospital to the surgery center. So identifying low risk patients who are actually still getting their surgeries done in the hospital, where it's safe for them to be doing that in the outpatient environment as well. And as we're expanding on this solution, are working with a telemedicine partner to go into the home as kind of a future product. The US outpatient facility market, there's over 40,000 facilities. As you may or may not know, actually in the US, over 66% of all surgeries that happen are being done outside of the hospital. And the shift from hospital to outpatient is growing at 12% per year. Our revenue model is pretty simple. We essentially charge either $100 per month or $200 per month with a $2,000 per bed upfront fee. Really the big value drivers for our customers is allowing them to actually know which patients they safely can be conducting care for outside the hospital. And so if you look at an example surgery center customer of ours, by using our system, they were able to use the data gathered to set up a total joint program and safely shift thousands of patients that would otherwise have the surgery in the hospital into the outpatient environment, which is top line revenue for them. We've provided care both internationally and domestically for over 40,000 patients, have 75 customers and over 1 million hours of data. We have over 150 years of experience in medtech, including our commercial officer having successfully commercialized 4 medtech startups. And we're raising $2 million right now to help expand on our US commercial efforts. And our first US customer just invested as part of this round. Thank you, and happy to answer questions.
Wow, you are right on time. Excellent job. Thank you. So let's kick off questions with Balint.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It's a really important topic and really understandable from a business perspective. So there can be a lot of space for the service. What I'm really curious about is the competitive landscape and your direct or indirect competitors as well.
Yeah, great question. So when we first, when my co-founder lost his grandfather, the first thing we did is we spent about 2 years going and talking to hospitals, device manufacturers, and we're like, why does this exist? Doesn't Philips and GE and others have this? And essentially what we learned is that there are great connected monitoring solutions out there that are of hospital grade, but they often require a pretty big lift in IT infrastructure. So this is Ethernet to every bed, a gateway at nursing stations, on-prem servers, IT teams that actually have to implement that. And so our whole focus was, could we build a solution that you could implement with nothing but an outlet? We could deploy remotely and we could do it in a day. And we've done over 75 deployments in hospitals and outpatient facilities, and it's never taken us a day to install, train, and go live.
And what's about the direct competitors who are doing quite similar to your solutions?
Yeah, within the home environment of like RPM and different, integrated wearables, obviously that's a whole category of its own. In terms of actually those that compete within any type of a facility, really we've seen the big competitors to be the large incumbent players. The big ones that we go against would be probably the biggest one I actually see nowadays is Mindray, being the big one, but we do see some from Philips, GE, Datascope as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Orrin.
Yeah, thanks. That was a great presentation. As an anesthesiologist, I feel like I am very familiar with this space, so I appreciate the work you're doing. Michael, I have a question. I was looking at your website, and there was some allusion to some artificial intelligence and decision-making support. And so I was wondering about the balance in this company between the hardware solution, which you demonstrated today, and more of the software solution, which is the cloud capability, the integrations, and most importantly, the artificial intelligence, which frees up the practitioners. You can scale that business a lot better. Could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our view from literally day one was we wanted to be very focused on the data and the software. We actively didn't want to actually build hardware. As you can appreciate, it's expensive, time consuming, and we had to, run all this through the FDA, which actually I didn't mention, our whole system has been cleared by the FDA under 510K. And so our focus was that the hardware ended up being an enabler. It solved a lot of those IT issues that actually unlocked the data that clinicians and medical directors cared about. So moving forward, we're actually actively looking at integrating different hardware and software products into our solution with a big focus on software. So pretty much all of our R&D efforts moving forward are on software and data. And we have built out a machine learning algorithm and 2 different convolutional neural networks. And we have 2 peer-reviewed publications based on some of that AI work that we've done.
Great. So Gary and Michael, could I ask for you guys to provide any feedback for Michael on his startup? Gary, let's start with you.
Yeah, so Michael, hi, Gary Goldman, yet another anesthesiologist on the call. Lucky day for you. So I'm very interested in looking at your business model because I kind of get it, but in terms of the solution and the remote patient monitoring, but you're casting a huge net. I mean, you're really cradle to grave here in the way you're presenting it. Everything from ambulatory all the way into inpatient and encompassing. And I understand the ability for this to cover all those phases of care, but what's your initial focus?
Outpatient surgery centers.
Okay, great. And it was great presentation. I love the idea, the fact that your FDA F510 approved already. We'd be very interested in talking to you, by the way, afterwards.
Awesome, thank you.
Mike?
Michael, excellent presentation. You basically had the timing. A lot of people have an issue with it. It's sort of,
There he is. He's back.
I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Okay, take 2. So comic relief, that's exactly what I'm here for. So I guess the one question I have, 2 million seems like a relatively small raise for the scope that you're looking to realize. So grand scheme of things, why do you pick that number, and would you be contemplating going higher? Given the interest I imagine would be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So here in the US market, actually, until very recently, I was like the single person doing all commercial. So I just brought on our chief commercial officer, a sales rep, and a marketing firm. And I'm essentially taking what I've done and laying process to show that it is scalable and repeatable. And so the reason for the immediate funding is to be able to build up that commercial proof so that when we go out to raise a targeted $10 million financing later on this year, early next year, we can be able to show, hey, you give me this money, here's the process and the data supporting it. 12 months later, here's the revenue that we deliver. And we're close, but not quite there.
Brilliant.
Great. All right. Great. Judges, it is time to give Stasis Labs a score. So I'm going to ask you to put up some fingers and have me do some digital math there. So judges, 1, 2, 3, what's your score? So we've got, all right, 3 4s and a 3. Thank you. Thank you. Great job, Michael. Thanks very much.
Good job.
And our next startup is, we'll have Graham Douglas with, is it Arete or Arete Medical?
Or Arete Medical.
Arete, great. And Graham, we can hear you. Now we'll be looking for your slides that are coming up. Beautiful. I see your slides, and we're ready to go whenever you are.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Graham Douglas, founder of Arete Medical. I started Arete after my PhD at Cambridge in bioengineering, inspired by my own struggles with asthma as a competitive swimmer. Asthma and COPD and other long-term lung conditions are really difficult challenges to diagnose and monitor. From my own experience, which is like a lot of other people with these conditions, it's a very trial and error process. There's not a lot of data involved. The measurements that can be used to understand.
Graham, your audio has all of a sudden gone away. So what I'm going to suggest is that you turn off your video camera, and let's see if that frees up some network to let your audio come clear.
Is that any better?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great.
And actually, we cannot hear you.
Hear me.
We can hear you a little bit. You want to try keep talking?
Sorry, can we ask Graham to unplug his headset?
Yeah, maybe that's, can you try that? Graham, can you unplug your headset? Okay, what I think we're going to do, Graham, is we're going to move on to the next company, let you work with to see if you can resolve these issues, and then we'll come back to you at the end. So that means that we're going to tee up Daniel Zakowski with Ready Set Food next. And Daniel, can you talk so we can hear you?
Absolutely. Can you see my screen now?
We can see your screen, and we'll give you a minute to just, you got this. This is sort of a little sooner than you thought. So you start as you're ready.
I'm good. I figured as I heard him cutting out that this might be what came next. But hopefully this buys him a little time to get things back and going. So,
yeah.
But hi, I'm Daniel Zakowski. I think we all met through intros. But I started Ready Set Food after my nephew developed a number of severe food allergies. And the backstory on food allergies is that food allergies have been an exploding epidemic in the U.S. 1 in 13 babies will get a food allergy right now, and that's about a 400% increase in allergic reactions just between 2010 and 2016, which has an enormous impact on quality of life as well as medical costs. But I think the amazing opportunity that I saw with my brother-in-law when we started this company in the aftermath of my nephew developing these food allergies is that there's now evidence you can prevent up to 80% of these food allergies just by feeding babies allergens early and often, not by using any chemicals or drugs, by just making it easy for them to eat those allergenic foods themselves, starting around 4 months of age. And the reason we know that works is that it's part of all the medical guidelines now. When we started this company, it was really based more on the clinical trials that had been done, which I'll get into a little bit later. But the real key, I think, and the really wonderful thing that's happened in this last year is that we now have not just medical guidelines from the American Academy of Allergy and Asthma and the American College of Allergy and Asthma, but USDA dietary guidelines saying that every baby should eat these allergenic foods early and often to prevent food allergies. And I think just to give you an idea of how much of an impact that could have on babies like my nephew, for him it's too late because there's no cure for food allergies, but that if every parent followed these new medical guidelines and gave their baby these allergenic foods early and often, you'd have about 200,000 fewer babies every single year that develop food allergies. And I think that that's a really huge opportunity for us to make a difference in kids' lives. The problem is that feeding allergens to babies is really hard. And in the clinical trials, you had less than half the parents able to follow the protocol. And that's even among parents who signed up for a clinical trial and had the full support of doctors and nurses. So it's clear that if we want every parent to follow the guidance that was recently issued by USDA and the American Academy of Allergy and Asthma, we have to do more to help parents. And the key there is that we've developed a patented system now to introduce these allergens through a bottle to help prevent food allergies. And we got our patent last October, and it's through a guided system exactly following what was done in the clinical trials. Our goal is not to reinvent the science. We did develop it in coordination with the head of allergy at CHOP and the former president of the American Academy of Allergy and Asthma. But our goal is really just to focus on compliance, because that's what was wrong in the clinical trials. And our patented system has over 95% compliance just by shipping boxes to parents in the mail, not by having parents that are as excited as those that were in the clinical trials or had as much support. And I think for us, it's really important to look at, what's the medical background of our product. This is an issue where there's the safety and efficacy that are both important, because this is food that you're feeding to babies. So having a product that I developed in conjunction with my co-founder, Dr. Mark Skogan, our chief allergist, but also with Dr. Jonathan Spergel, who's the head of allergy at CHOP, Dr. Gary Rachelewski, the former president of the American Academy of Allergy and Asthma, lets us know that we're doing the right thing for babies that's going to be both safe and also effective at preventing food allergies. And I think we've had an amazing year in 2020 already, with hitting over a $2 million run rate now, with 3.5x year-over-year growth. We've not only got our patent approved, but as I mentioned, new medical guidelines have now come out directly supporting our product. And we've had one investment round led last year and another that we're having led right now by Danone Ventures, the venture arm of Danone, which is the second largest formula maker in the world. So I think we have the right kind of strategic partnerships, both to grow and also potentially to have different interesting acquisition opportunities, as well as demonstrated traction, and that parents like using our product and will use it on a continual basis for their baby. Right now, we're finishing up a $3.5 million equity financing round I mentioned, led by Danone. We've already shown that our patent would be approved. It's safe. We have the right kind of customer retention. Our real focus for this next year is that we can prove that we can get payer reimbursement, because there is demonstrated ROI now for food allergy prevention. That's part of the guidelines that came out, is that there's a demonstrated $13,000 savings for every baby that does food allergy prevention with eczema, and our products cost less than $200. So there's really fantastic ROI. And then to continue to work on bringing down acquisition costs and LTV. So I can be done.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Judges, any questions for Daniel? Orrin?
Daniel, thanks. That was really great. And there's no question that early exposure, I think that data is very solid. So I think this is an interesting approach. One of my questions as you're running through your presentation is, if you could you remind me how young you start the babies on the exposure therapy?
Great question. So in all the current clinical trials, it was 4 months of age. Our medical team feels like it'll be younger in the future, but 4 months is current recommendation.
So that leads to my bigger question, which is, there's a large breastfeeding population and they're very bottle averse. And so do you have a plan to develop a product that meets those needs, or is that just a cohort that you're not going to be speaking to?
No, that's a great question. I think there's two different groups. So there's one group that is solid food averse. They're told don't do anything other than breastfeeding for the first 6 months. But they are going back to work. They're going on dates with their spouses, which means they're pumping and they're giving bottles to their baby. So they may be only breastfeeding and not doing solids, but for them, we're the perfect solution, because we're a way, without having to introduce solids, for them to give these allergenic foods, which is why lactation consultants really love our product, is because it's a way that they can continue not introducing solids, but still give allergens starting at 4 months of age. Then there's a much smaller group, which is doing exclusive breastfeeding with no pumping whatsoever, which would really have to be people who don't have a job they have to go back to, or things like that. And from our data, we've seen that's less than 5% of the population. So we will eventually, I think, have a product for them. It would be much more expensive to produce. So I think given the small market and the expensive nature of the product, it's probably going to be much farther down our development pipeline.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, hi, Gary Goldman. So a very interesting concept. I'm also a physician. So I guess what I'm just trying to wrap my head around. So is this really indicated for every baby, or is this are you starting out with recommendations like there's a family history of food allergies? You know, where are you starting in terms of recommending this product?
Great question. So the medical guidelines say that every baby should do this at 4 to 6 months of age, and that every provider should recommend this and give this kind of education at the 2 and 4 month well child visits. So that's why we've already partnered, for example, with Advocate Aurora Health System. They've launched an educational set of tools with us system-wide, and in every well child visit at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, and 9 months, they use our non-branded educational tools to teach about food allergy prevention. So it's indicated both by the guidelines as well as by the clinical trials, and that's what is currently the kind of the best practice that's being rolled out at leading healthcare systems.
Thank you.
Great. Mike, go ahead, Mike.
I don't really have anything to say outside of that. This seems brilliant. I mean, grand scheme of things, the reticence that people have. I have a pair of 4-year-olds, and I knew that we were just full of anxiety. Anytime you have a new baby, it's just, what can you expose them to? What can you do? And some people autocorrect and overcorrect and limit their ability to be exposed to anything. And I guess that may not be such a niche market, but this is invaluable from my perspective. So I want to laud you for the effort and for what you've managed to accomplish. That's all.
Great, thanks. And Balint.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, then it's a really great concept and a great vision helping with this aspect of the family life. And what I'm curious about is a bit more in depth of your business model.
Sure. So we currently sell our product direct to consumer. That's the 95% or more of our business model. But I think that because this is such an education-heavy category that's new and requires more education, a key part of our business model is partnering with healthcare systems and providers to give them educational tools. We've created a lot of educational tools with our medical advisory board because we have so many top allergists in our group. So we've created a lot of tools that we can partner with. So Advocate Aurora, I mentioned, has already rolled out a system-wide set of educational tools with us, and we're working on with Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic and Chalk on final approval to get approved there, but we already have approval from the head of allergy at each of those systems. So I think have some opportunities to drive more scalable awareness with providers, but that generally in the near term, we're just a more traditional kind of online e-commerce company. In the middle to longer term, as I mentioned, there's like a $13,000 ROI for every baby with eczema that does early allergen introduction. So there's a real opportunity to pursue payer reimbursement, as well as work with self-insured employers, which is something we've started to do already with a number of smaller self-insured employers like Snapchat and ServiceTitan and Zappos. But I think that's a bigger part of the longer term strategy, is that given the ROI is so positive, to really have it be something that is more affordable for everyone by having it be done through payers.
Terrific. Thank you. Well, I have to say, I do think you win the prize for all of the these events that we've done for one of the funniest slides, which was the kid with all the spinach all over. You hands down, you have that honor so far. That was a winner for sure.
I would concur with that.
Yeah. All right, judges, can you please help with providing a score for Ready, Set, Food? All right, so we have a 4, 3 4s. All right, we have 4s all around. Thank you. Terrific job, Daniel, and thanks for sharing that with us.
Thanks.
So Graham, we're hoping things are going well there. We're going to move on to our next startup and then hope you're figuring things out, but maybe you can do some direct Slack messaging to give us an update to either myself or Savannah. So it is now our pleasure to go to Dr. Stephen Moyo to talk about Wellfy.
Wonderful. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and I see your slides.
Excellent. Two for two.
Yeah. Great.
Let me get into presentation mode here.
We're all set.
All right. I'm just going to wait for it to load fully. All right, perfect. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Stephen Moya. It's a real pleasure to be here today to talk to you about my company, Wealthy. Wealthy is a community health platform that is focused on bringing health to the families that need it most. My background is I'm a physician, and this is my family that you actually see here on the slide. We're a multi-generational family and as well an immigrant family. And this is the type of family that we want to focus on. American families are sicker, they're dying younger, and they're paying more. Right now, we're in a moment where 91 million kids plus adults that have been connected to the K through 12 system have really seen the impact of at least COVID-19 on health and wellness and what it means for their families. But there are numbers that I could quote: 102 million with heart disease, 30 million with diabetes. And this is really chronic conditions that are impacting families of color the most. So we focus on the future, which is kids, and the families that need us most. Families of color. The USA will be a majority minority population by 2045. We want to focus on women as well, who are the health CEO of not only the family, but the workplace. And then children, who really are great behavior change catalysts within families and their communities. So our focus is to empower families to engage with care earlier and often. And we do that through three real care models. One is self-care, which families can create a personal health profile on our platform and will deliver content and engagement to the family. The second is social communities to provide support and accountability and really drive adherence to management and care plans. Last but not least is connecting them to the services that they need, as well as services to address social determinants of health. Our customers are payers and insurers at the end of the day. This is who we want to focus on. Our focus is really driving cost reduction at scale. So improving health through that personalized preventive care, decreasing utilization to the care paradigms I just mentioned, self-care, social care, and services, and then actually increasing reimbursement for payers and insurers by helping them track quality and engagement metrics like HEDIS and STARS. Care coordination decreases utilization, and it's actually improving the health and engagement of patients. Our first focus is going to be on the $375 billion managed Medicaid market. The interesting thing for payers and insurance is that they only have a 3% pre-tax margin here, and really, depending on the state, 70 to 60 profit per member per month. With 54 million people enrolled in Medicaid market, we think it's a large market where we can start our journey. And we really want to focus on delivering whole family health through this community care coordination. So the three domains that we're going to be focusing on for the first at least 2 years, which are immune domain, mental health, as well as heart health. And these are really health issues that are going to impact the bottom line for payers and insurers, but are also impacting the bottom line for schools and employers. And I mentioned this because these communities are the key gateway for us to get to the families that we want to connect with. And for them, it's about community engagement, tracking the health of their community, member success. And then we are approaching this with a SaaS model. And we're doing this right now with really helping K through 12 schools reopen and get back to school and help their students succeed. We offer a COVID-19 symptom screener, as well as access to testing, this tracker, as well as focusing on health education in the K through 12 space. And we're actually aligned with state and federal funding priorities for COVID-19. There's $10 billion, which is going to go to testing and tracking, and another $22 billion towards learning loss. We have key partnerships in the education space. One is with Chiefs for Change, which is a network of state and district education leaders, which includes superintendents, commissioners, chief executives of large districts, and they have reached to 1 in 3 students in the US. We have a partnership that's going to focus on marketing, branding, as well as introductions to drive sales. And then last but not least is this integration with PowerSchool, which is the #1 student information system in the US. Covers 24 million students in the US, 45 million in North America. And this is a key data integration that we have in place. And you need to be able to integrate at scale with schools and districts. So we have traction in the market. We built our product really last summer. We've piloted with multiple businesses as well as schools leading into this year, and have signed a contract with HealthTech High going forward. So within PowerSchool alone, which is a very large market, we really are differentiated from the competition. There are COVID-19 trackers, but there's no comprehensive solution offering testing, advisory services, which we're able to do with our team, as well as health content to educate their population. So we are the people we aim to serve. We're a Black and women-owned company. I'm joined by Dr. Naka Edwards-Jackson, who's a pediatrician and our chief medical officer. And then Susan McLennan, who's an Emmy Award-winning content creator with a focus on creating content for kids and really driving behavioral change and inspiring kids to be catalysts for change. We are raising $1.5 million really to exceed milestones by January of 2023, focusing on scale, technology, and engagement. We believe in this nascent market for, frankly, COVID-19 management solutions for schools. We can scale rapidly with a target of 1 million daily active users. For technology, we want to integrate into other SIS platforms plus electronic health records, and then really engage with a core set of families throughout different feature sets and health domains. Our future plans.
We have to sort of wrap it up there because you're over time.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Great presentation. So, judges, any questions for Dr. Moyo? Let's go ahead, Orrin. Yes.
Okay, Stephen, thanks. That was really interesting. I also believe that children are the future, and we have to let them lead the way. But I think, with respect to the presentation, I thought there was a lot of interesting data in there. But the one thing I really don't know is what, you're raising money for technology and engagement, and you didn't really present anything about the technology and engagement. I'm not, outside of COVID tracking, entirely sure what you're doing. I think you really have to focus specifically on, what the platform looks like, what it's going to do, how you measure success, and how you grow that and scale it, particularly when you're speaking with venture investors, because we want to see growth, right? We want to see exponential growth. And I just honestly, I suspect you're doing something really terrific, but I didn't walk away knowing what that is. So I would advise that maybe you take a moment and explain a little bit more specifically about the technology and the engagement parameters you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So the back end, or not back end technology, but our approach is to allow health assessments to be pushed to populations, aggregate insights for those community leaders, so schools and employers, and then actually automate the delivery of resources. So that's the content, when I mentioned the self-care, community to support the individual, as well as really mapping them and connecting them with services.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, judges? Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, hi, Gary Goldman. So yeah, I kind of agree with Orrin. I'm going through the site now, and I guess if I were going to give you some positive feedback, what I would say is this is a great idea, but I'd focus on the more global solution. These days, especially when you're standing in front of a group of certainly physician venture capitalists, and we only hear COVID, and we're on the downslide of COVID right now. Your solution is much more than that in terms of health and well-being of students and children at school. And that really is, to me, a compelling presentation. Whereas if I also got from the presentation mostly COVID-19, but the idea is a great idea. So I congratulate you on just the whole concept, having 4 kids myself. So I get it.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or feedback before we move to scoring? Okay, great. Balint?
Yeah. So it's a really a great mission, and what I'm curious about, a bit connecting to the others, what could be that focus area which could be the core of your offering, of your product in the long run?
If I'm hearing you correctly, in terms of the product, what's the kind of the focus user experience?
My question is regarding the product itself. So what you sell to the clients, because I feel that now it's kind of a broad message, but
Yep.
But what could be that subset of this vision, which could be the most important added value to your users?
Yeah, the most important added value is we want to get to really 2 things. One is a mobile app in the hands of our end users. So for schools, for example, that's going to be primarily actually be parents, but as well as students, and have them really engage daily with health checks with that app. For the intermediary, whether that's schools or employers, it really serves as a population health platform, right? They can see the health of their entire community which has a lot of value towards the bottom line. And then the third partner that we need to think about is the payers and insurers. So delivering HEDIS measures, STARS reports to them, and giving them also a population health platform. So we really have sort of three categories of users that we need to be concerned about, and try to do that all on one platform.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike?
Sorry, you're on
mute, Mike.
So on the bandwidth with respect to curating to the end users, it's such an expansive group. I mean, children to the elderly, and children in and of themselves, their growth rate, it's a huge market unto itself. And so far as how do you curate a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, it's many facets to play along with. And I think the bandwidth to accommodate that would be so expansive that it's almost nullifying to a degree. So that how do you curate the content to adapt to such a very broad client base?
Yeah, that's a great question. For students specifically, the way that we're focusing on it is to focus on high school students first and foremost. Deliver content actually through the curriculum. And then Susan, who's had a lot of experience in this space, they in their experience have identified really sort of the age group of 9 to 12 as this really essential age group to take in the information, understand it, and then be able to actually impact their families. So we wouldn't go too young, but really try to stay within, I think, a narrow range at first until we have a good volume of content and proof of concept in full.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, judges, let's shift to giving a score for Welfie. Why don't you put out your fingers? There we go. We have a 3. All right, we have 3s across the board. Thank you so much, Stephen. Great job. Thanks for sharing that with us today. All right, Graham is back and ready to rock. Here we go. Glad you can make the technical things work. Hopefully, we're all crossing our fingers for you. So,
yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Let me know if you're having troubles hearing, but I think
we hear you now, and we see you.
Great. I'll turn my video off just for now to preserve bandwidth here.
Yeah.
We're having some internet troubles the last couple of days here.
Yeah, it happens.
Everything's set.
All right.
Good to go?
Whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you. I'm Graham Douglas. I founded Arete Medical after my PhD at Cambridge in bioengineering, inspired by my own struggles with asthma as a national level competitive swimmer. Asthma and COPD and other long-term lung conditions are really difficult to manage and diagnose. And my experience is reflective of a lot of other people. Usually you go to your doctor with a cough or difficulty breathing. They give you an inhaler. You go back to them later. If that doesn't work, they give you another inhaler. You increase the dose. There's very little data and measurements being involved in this process, especially in primary care and at home, which is where most of these conditions get managed. There's another facet of difficulty that asthma and COPD are mostly driven by flare-ups. So viruses, allergens cause short-term bursts of the disease, which is where a lot of the burden comes from. We also increasingly understand that while we have dozens of classes of drugs for asthma and COPD, there's a huge targeting problem because the underlying biology and inflammation involved in asthma and COPD is different for different people. There's really a lack of precision medicine, a lack of data in general in managing asthma and COPD, especially people with more severe variants. In response to this, we're developing the Respicorder, which is bringing access to proven measurements. We're combining spirometry, oscillometry, and exhaled nitric oxide, which are the 3 key measurements used today in pulmonary functional labs and hospitals, and making them much lower cost, portable, and web connected, so they can go from being once a lifetime or once a year diagnosis tools to being weekly or even daily monitoring and management tools. We do that by lowering the cost by having a combined device, which brings things together. That also is a lot more convenient for family medicine practice as well as people at home. It gives the opportunity, especially at home, to have the digital layer. We can bring in allergens, air quality data from the health record, and use this really as a respiratory hub to have communication with different people around the care team. primary care, community nurses, respiratory specialists, or pulmonologists, and really bringing that information about the patient, which is really defined by the time course of the disease, and making it accessible to everyone. We're looking to do for lung conditions what works in other chronic diseases. So taking these high quality measurements of lung function, lung inflammation, and lung mechanics, which cost between $2,000 and $10,000 plus per unit that measures one thing that are in hospitals today, and blend it with the closeness of devices to the patient. So things like wearables, smart inhalers, peak flow monitors, those are great because they're close to the patient, but they really don't, unfortunately, give the condition or give the data that's needed to proactively manage these conditions. They say nothing about the inflammation going on in the lungs, and they are telling problems once they've already happened. They have that predictive capability. What we're looking to do in respiratory is follow the model that's been successful by Butterfly Networks with ultrasound everywhere, Livongo for diabetes management, and Echo devices for cardiovascular care, and apply that to respiratory. And what that is bringing really high quality measurements from the clinic and making them accessible to be used essentially anywhere. With that, we can also follow similar business models. Instead of being a med tech model of being equipment and disposables, moving towards more of a health tech model of minimizing upfront cost and going more to a subscription basis. We're Beracah Medical. We're a team of 6 based in Cambridge, UK. We've got about 2.5 million in government grants to date, including one collaboration with University of Amsterdam Medical Center and an engineering department in the Netherlands, where we ranked second out of 369 applicants from 34 countries. We're looking for a seed round to complement that, as well as connecting to US pulmonologists to complement our great KOLs that we have from Cambridge University, Oxford University, University of Amsterdam, to help understand our product in the US medical system. Thank you. It'd be great to take any questions.
Thank you very much. And just on time. Let's see, who do we have for questions? I think, Mike, is that you? Okay, I just had your finger in front of the screen. That's okay. Orrin.
Graham, thanks for that presentation. I agree with you. Lung health is really complicated and is very suited to home monitoring and treatment as opposed to some other disease processes. I look at it a lot like chronic cardiac care, congestive heart failure patients. The question I have, and you'll see a theme in some of my questions, you talked about anticipating and preventing illness, which is different than just monitoring somebody's lung health. And so I was wondering, to me, that involves creating artificial intelligence, decision support, rather than obviously a one-to-one doctor to patient relationship, which is not really, at least in the United States, an effective method of home care. So I'd be interested in what you've built in that respect, and what data do you have to show that you are preventing? And then the last thing, which I think is the benchmark, is there is data at home. It's just badly reported data. It's personal experience data. It's sign symptoms rather than signs, but people know when they're starting to get sick. So what I'd like to see is a definitive improvement over a baseline group that just grabs their inhalers when they don't feel well. And I'm sure there is, but that's to me, what you compare to, not nothing.
Yeah, those are really great points. I think there's 2 main areas of evidence for our approach. And the first area is on the intervention side. So there's particularly with Symbicort, which is AstraZeneca's combined inhaler and includes inhaled steroid. They have a protocol that you take not just your reliever, but also your preventer when you're feeling symptomatic. So there is this precedent of adjusting a drug dose as part of prevention to manage the inflammation involved in the condition. The other part is being able to see signals of deterioration or signals of change before that person is able to perceive them themselves. And there's good evidence of that with exhaled nitric oxide, which is a type 2 inflammation biomarker, and ties well to the corticosteroid response, as well as from oscillometry, which is an acoustic measurement we do of the lungs, which in a study that came out last year was able to see with the AUC of about 0.72 3 days before a COPD exacerbation, being able to predict that exacerbation. And that was with statistical methods, but kind of more regression analysis than machine learning. I think when you get into that, there's a lot more potential and capabilities that are really exciting. Our view is you have to start with really quality data and then follow it with the modeling. You can't get modeling when there's not data to start with.
Great. Any other questions or feedback? All right, let's go ahead. Balint, you have something? Okay.
Yes, it's what I'm curious about. Is the business model in bit more in depth? So how can we imagine it?
Yeah, so where we're going is towards a payer-based model, because they have the incentive for long-term care, and being mainly around subscription model. So focusing on the digital health, reducing the hardware costs to the point where the hardware becomes insignificant, much like a smartphone contract. So with different customers, we'll have a balance between somewhere between maybe about $100 or $1,000 upfront cost and a maybe $50 monthly subscription, or more monthly subscription and less of an upfront cost over a sort of 2 or 3 year term.
And which you see as a more viable setup, more focus on the subscription model, or more focus on the fixed price?
I think the subscription is a lot more exciting and more aligned to incentives.
Yeah. If it's feasible, then it's definitely a promising direction, and a great presentation and great concept. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you, Graham, for sharing that with us. Judges, can I ask you to score Arete Medical Technologies? So we have 3 4s and a 3. All right. So that means that our winning startup for today is going to be Ready Set Food, Daniel Zakowski. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, let's sort of applaud that. That is terrific. So thank you to all the startups who pitched and shared what you're working on so hard every day. It really is a privilege for all of us to get to, have a glimpse into all of that hard work and how you're making things better for patients, for healthcare, et cetera. So that's really a privilege for us, and we really appreciate it. Once again, just a reminder that nobody walks away empty-handed today, as everybody participating can get a free product boost with Bene Studio. And so let's see. So the Ready Set Food will be highlighted as the HealthTech Startup of March, with an exclusive interview that will be published on the Networking Club page and across our social media channels. I hope that all of us give both Ready Set Food as well as all the startups presenting today some social media love and encouragement. And so I'm just going to ask Daniel quickly, do you have anything that you want to say to the audience?
No, I mean, I think, well, first of all, just thank you for having me on and just to help spread the message about Ready Set Food, but also, if you have any babies in your life, just to let them know, because I think the guidelines are new and our biggest challenge is that most parents don't know yet. And that we just need to spread awareness, because if every parent followed the new medical guidelines, there'd be 200,000 fewer babies that get food allergies. So please tell some parents.
Great, thank you. So thank you, attendees, of course, for attending this event, and big congratulations again to our winner, Ready Set Food. And our next event is going to be on April 29th, and we really do hope you will join us for our next Rapid Conference. So to our networking club members, please feel free to keep networking with each other on Slack. Have a great day and see you next month. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Congrats.